Oh yeah, I see. It's great. Good. Terrific. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I gotta pay attention over here. You okay with that? So, what do we talk about? Tulsa. Texas. Horses.
What?
Horses. Talk about horses. So I have a lot of horses. My business manager said, don't buy anything that eats while you sleep. But I didn't follow his advice. So I've got a lot of quarter horses, which are popular in Texas. I also have some saddlebreds, American saddlebreds, beautiful horses. I even have a couple of standardbreds, trotting horses. So I'm just sort of busy with horses.
I didn't know he liked horses.
Breed horses. Breed all three breeds. Got babies on the ground. Actually, the babies are growing. And as you might or might not know, a horse becomes a year old every January 1st. So I've got 3 or 4 babies that will be a year old in January. And then when they're about 2, they start to come in to be trained. And then we put what we call the leather on them, and we find out whether they're talented for what they're supposed to be talented for. And so that's what I'm doing with horses. I'm racing through in my mind what to tell you, which horse story to tell you. There was a horse that I rode and young and got all excited in a horse show competition and reared in the air and started to fall back on me. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get killed here. And then the horse at the last minute fell to the side and kind of wrecked my leg. And then I got up and I fell down. I got up and fell down. And it was only much later, years, 2, 3, 4 years later, that experience of rising and falling, sort of gave me an idea of how to play the death of Captain Kirk when it called for the character to die, and in the script it said he gets shot in the back. I said to the director, if I get up and fall down, get up and fall down, get up and fall down, and unable to get up anymore, bleed out. That's the way that happened to me with this horse. I said, oh, good idea. So that's what we did. And that accident on a horse had its application in Star Trek, which is interesting. Hello, everybody. Ask me a question and I'll ramble on. Yes. Yes. Ah, no juice in the microphone. Have you got? What?
Hello?
There you go.
I'm Mr. Shatner. Welcome to Tulsa. Thank you for coming.
Hi.
I'm actually a big fan of...
Right close to the mic.
Alright. I'm a big fan of the movie that you were in, Miss Congeniality.
What? You're a big fan? I heard that part. What was the name?
Miss Congeniality.
Miss Congeniality.
Yes. So I was going to ask you, what was it like to work with Sandra Bullock and...
Sandra Bullock, yeah.
Yeah, on that kind of movie.
She has had at least a home in Austin. So she's like Texan, isn't she? The seats are so far upstage. What's it like to work with Sandra Bullock? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and all the movie and stuff.
I'm here at the Star Trek convention and I'm being asked what it's like. I'll deal with that. Sandra Bullock is a wonderful lady. She's got great acting chops, and she's got a wonderful business sense. In fact, we were such good friends, and I hadn't seen her in a long while. But while we were making the movie, and sometime after that, we were great friends. And she invited me to her wedding when she married the man who did the motorcycles. And so it was like a great country. You know, I don't know where she was born, but she wasn't a country girl. But this guy certainly was a country guy. He led motorcycles, and you know, he was tattooed, and he was a real Joe. And she was an actress from Hollywood. The combination was different, and as much as you might say that opposites attract, and I'm sure they do, on a long-term basis, I don't think opposites are great. You know, somebody wants to sleep on the bed, someone wants to sleep under the bed. I don't think that works too well. You know? So the marriage broke up shortly thereafter. So I was very sorry to see that, because I know she loved him and must have been attracted by all the things that he had to offer. So this wedding was really a little strange with all his friends and her friends. It took place up in Santa Barbara area in California, and so it was kind of exotic and glamorous, and then it didn't last too long. I was just sorry to hear it. But making the movie was great fun. She's a wonderful lady, and I admire her very much. You good with that? My dear? Yes. Well, I call you my dear, but I don't really mean it. Okay. Right into the mic so I can hear it. Or you can, that's it. See, now that's a lesson in life right there. Because you are bending to the circumstances, but you can bend the circumstances to you.
Anyway, I've just started watching Star Trek, you know, like 5 weeks ago.
What's the matter with you?
Well, it's something that I haven't really heard of, but, you know, I've heard of it, so I wanted to get into the show. And I gotta say,
what did you think?
It's really good. I mean,
it's really good.
I love the premise.
That's why it lasted 50 years.
The premise is very good, you know, that way you can jump in on any episode.
Oh, okay, so wait a minute, the premise. What's the premise?
You know, going to strange new worlds, discovering
yes.
life.
Oh my God, look how well you did that.
Anyway, my question is, you know, when you first heard of this role, like when you were approached about this role, what were your first thoughts about it? Like, did you think it'd go anywhere? Did you think it'd be as big as it is right now?
Interesting question. Before I answer it though, let's talk a little bit about like you're virginal. in its way to Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the first time.
Yeah.
How did you feel your first time? Describe it. What did the worlds open? Did the universe expand? And we want to have it.
Just curiosity, you know.
You mean it wasn't large and big and suddenly your mind was illuminated?
Actually, it was like, for me, what I can describe it as like something that I look forward to watching, you know? You know, I think.
Well, that's already better than nothing.
You know, because like imagine like you're coming home from work and you have something to look forward to when you get home.
That's right.
I'm still trying
That's what happens when you're virginal.
Anyway, so you know, I'm still on season 1 of Star Trek. Almost done with season 1. Getting ready.
Wait a minute. Say that again. What?
I'm still on season 1 of Star Trek.
Well, you still what?
On season 1 of Star Trek.
You've only seen one Star Trek.
No, I'm still on season 1. I'm
season 1.
Yeah.
Oh, you're still in season 1. Oh,
yeah.
You're binge.
Yeah.
You can't get out of the room.
Exactly.
Sounds like a virgin to me.
You are not wrong. I said you're not wrong.
What did you say?
I said you're not wrong.
through Star Trek. That can happen. So, my first experience with Star Trek was I got a telephone call from Gene Roddenberry. They had made another pilot of the Star Trek. As he explained on the phone, that they had made a film of an hour of Star Trek with another actor. Jeffrey Hunter. God, thank you, man. Stay with me. With Jeffrey Hunter, he was a wonderful-looking guy and a really terrific actor, very popular at that time. So he played Captain Pike. And I'm preaching to the choir here. You're the only one who hasn't heard this story. But NBC didn't want to buy it for one reason or another. I didn't quite understand, because when I saw the pilot, which is what you're asking, when I saw the pilot at Paramount Studios, I sat in a small theater and they played it for me individually. It felt rather grand. I'm sitting alone there looking at this film. I thought it was terrific. I thought it was, you know, it had all the qualities of the Star Trek that I did for 3 years. It took itself a little seriously, and that was the real big suggestion that I had to Roddenberry about if you're on a ship for 5 years and you say to somebody, turn left, you don't go, I think we should, you know, with ponderous, it's, let's go to that, go over there 5 degrees. I would think. So, if anything, I brought some humor to that pilot. And that second pilot sold, and then it went on for a very small, limited time that it was on for 3 years. But Star Trek is part of science fiction. And science fiction is a whole other area of creativity, of exploration. And I didn't realize, and I don't think many people do realize, what science fiction in general does. Because religion, which is also mythological as is science fiction, religion seeks to explain what things we can't explain, life after death, morality, goodness, you know, all the ephemeral things that we can't quite put two and two to. And that's what religion does. And religion is filled with a ritual of prayer and incense and coming on a regular basis to pay obeisance to the God that you've chosen. Science fiction also seeks to explain that which is inexplicable. Who are the little green men? What is that light in the sky? What is time travel? Who's living on other planets? What their civilizations might be, and on and on and on about the mystery of space. We see such magic in quantum physics. You look at the stars and you say, oh, now we know they're expanding, and there's the Doppler effect, so that the red exchange, so we know that it's expanding, and Stephen Hawking is talking about black holes and whirlpools of energy, and it all makes a kind of sense to us because we understand whirlpools of water, but quantum physics is out of our imagination. When we look at an object, when we examine an object in quantum, it comes into existence, and when we stop looking at it, it ceases to exist. It's beyond science fiction. The real world that we're now finding glimmerings of is beyond science fiction. Things that we could never imagine. We talk about transportation, and transportation from one pole to another has been done, one molecule. That's been done recently. So in theory, to transport somebody from a ship down to the ground is theoretically possible, but practically, at least in our imagination, in our wildest dreams, the uncountable billions of cells, of molecules that we are, that would have to be transported in order to transport our human body from one place to another is unimaginable. And yet theoretically it can be done. And quantum physics, if nothing else, has taught us that if you can imagine anything, time travel, instead of going from point A to point B in multitude of light years at the speed of sound, which apparently is not possible, but a photon of light goes at the speed of sound, the speed of light. So why would it be impossible to go at the speed of light? The theory of everything is possible because of the awesomeness of quantum physics. So science fiction latches on to that imaginative possibilities. Time travel. So instead of going from A to B in 1,000 light years, would it theoretically be possible to bring B closer to A? And you wouldn't have any distance to go. Theoretically, it's possible, because you can imagine it. So everything that can be imagined is theoretically possible. How extraordinary that is. And Star Trek tantalizes you by these various stories. Things like that. Things like being black on the right-hand side and being white on the left. Meets a guy who's black on the left or white on the right, and they hate each other because they're a different color. Well, that's a great science fiction story, but look at what it tells us. And that's what Star Trek brings. And that's what season 1, and you'll go to season 2 because it gets better.
I've already watched bits of season 3 on BBC America.
Well, why didn't you say so?
I've only watched 5 episodes of season 3 on BBC America.
Oh, that's great. All right, so you're no longer a virgin.
And basically, with that stuff, the only limit is your imagination. Possibilities are endless.
That's exactly that. That's wondrous, man. What's your name?
Cole.
Cole. That's a great message. The possibilities are endless. That goes for everything. You brought the mic to you instead of you going to the mic. A possibility is for everything.
Unlike the last person,
Right into the mic.
Unlike the last person, I am not a Star Trek virgin. I grew up watching it.
You wandered into the wrong room.
So my question actually is my dad's question. He couldn't be here, but he wants to know if you like kissing green women.
Would I like what?
If you like kissing green women.
That's that word I can't figure out.
You like kissing green?
Oh, do I like green women? The implication of green women is chlorophyll, right? So they're absorbing carbon dioxide and giving off oxygen. So green women are very useful. What do you think your father meant by that?
I have no idea.
Well, wait a minute. You must have some idea. You know your father. Why would your father ask you to ask me would I like a green woman? Right into the mic.
He told me to ask. I have no idea.
No, we can't let it go like that. You've subjected yourself to me. Now you have to go with me. Why would your father ask you to ask me that question? Give me the furthest out possibility.
Maybe you're his role model.
How old are you?
I'm 18.
18? You're on the cusp of womanhood, are you? And you don't, you've never seen Star Trek? You don't like Star Trek?
No, I am not a Star Trek virgin. I grew up.
Well, what does that mean, a Star Trek person?
Virgin.
Virgin! Oh, we don't want to hear that here. This is not... So you've never seen Star Trek? You grew up on Star Trek. So where did the word virgin come from?
You said the other guy was a Star Trek virgin.
Yeah, and you're not.
And I said, I'm not.
Oh, you're not a virgin?
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that. That's why your father asked you to ask me about that.
Oh my God.
So you grew up on Star Trek?
Yes, I
Well,
did.
what does that mean?
That means from the time, as far as I can remember, I've been watching Star Trek.
And have you liked it?
I love it.
Go with God, my dear. Oh, wonderful. Hi, are we having fun? We're having fun. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Tad, and my question or comment would be, we've always known you as Captain Kirk, and I remember T.J. Hooker, and I remember a movie back in the 90s called Family of Strangers, where you play Melissa Gilbert's adopted father. And it's just, looking at your filmography, there's just a huge range of stuff that you've done. And you're talking about the comedy that you brought to Star Trek. Well, my basic question is, what happened to stuff my dad said? I love that show. And
Yeah.
laugh every minute.
You know, there is a commercial, not undertow, there's a commercial wave in show business. The people invest money in something, whether it's a series, stage show, a movie, they invest money, and that investor could be a studio, but the studio itself has investors, or it could be an individual who gives a group or a person money to make a film. Their expectation is to get their money back plus. That's the way it works. So, poop, my dad says. Actually, it wasn't poop. The word was shit, okay? Shit, my dad said.
I was leaving clean.
You can take it. Was owned by CBS, Canadian, the Columbia Broadcasting System, and I'm trying to remember the exact circumstances. So the ratings were very high. We were in the top 10, top 20 almost every week, no lower than the top 20. And we should have been a breeze to be renewed the next year. But there was something wrong with the economy of the show. The way the show was set up, there was something wrong with it. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I forgot. But CBS wasn't making enough money on the show. So although the show was very popular, it was #1 in Canada, they canceled purely on an economic basis. If it had gone a second season and we had discovered how to play the show, doing a new artistic venture, we just finished a show called Better Late Than Never. So they had this wild idea, going to send 4 people out with Henry and myself and George Foreman and Terry Bradshaw. 4 of us go out, and in this case we were in Asia, and we're blundering around Asia. These 4 disparate people, and the fun would be to shoot all of us interacting. We were almost complete except for Henry and I, who knew each other but not very well, we were all strangers. So the gamble was, take these 4 people, and would they get along for a month in Asia during the monsoon season? You know, with the humidity is 100% as well as the rain. Would the cameras work? Would we get assassinated? I mean, it was filled with all kinds of problems. And when we finished it, it went through a year of editing. Editing is, if you and I are having a dialogue and the editor chooses to stay on your face and I'm off screen, it becomes your scene, and vice versa, unless he cuts back and forth. Maybe he cuts to the audience and becomes the point of view of the audience. The editor is the real creator of something you see, like a film. It's the editing process that makes a film. And if the editor is brilliant and has a point of view and has a sense of drama, he can build a scene into something that it wasn't originally. So editing. So how do you edit this Better Late Than Never? Whose face are you on? How do you build the scene? If we're having a drink of water and somebody discovers it's poison, how do you make that funny? What do you do? How do you go about, the cameras are rolling all the time so they have enough raw material, but how do you edit it? And that was the case so it took a year, and it went through several edits, and the producers would come back every so often telling me, and I'm sure more often to Henry, who was the executive producer, we've taken another edit, and then NBC wants to do this, and it's not very funny, and then it is funny, and then they began to shoot Henry and me a year later, commenting on ourselves, trying to be amusing between us, so they could place it in between, and gradually, through a series of trial and error, they discovered how to edit Better Late Than Never. And so they discovered how to make the show. The same thing applied to Shit My Dad Said. Whose show? What does it do? Is it the relationship of this or that? What? And you need a while. In this case, it took a year for Better Late Than Never before the show was on the air. Now you're on the air in a series, and in a series you're discovering what people like and what they don't like when it's on the air, when it's almost too late. There, we were popular, but CBS canceled, and we were shocked as well that they had to cancel. But that editing thing is something for people who don't know about film to watch. Where does the camera go? On whose face are you when something dramatic happens? And that sets the attitude in the whole scene. You good?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Mark?
And I bought a book today, your book about your friend Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
My question is, how did you two meet for the first time? And how strong has your friendship with him?
Yes. So, I wrote a book called Leonard, and it's out there right now. Actually, there's another book out there as well called Zero G, science fiction thriller. You'd be delighted to read it. You'd be delighted to read both those books, actually. So Leonard, a remarkable man, 50 Years with a Remarkable Man, is a book about my friendship with Leonard Nimoy. Apparently, because neither one of us remembers it, we did a television show together before Star Trek. We were on the same show, but we never saw it. We weren't in the same scenes, so we never saw each other. So that's apparently when we met. Somebody said that. But as far as I remember, we met on the set of Star Trek.
Oh, that's...
Imagine that. How is that possible? But what happened was, in all these films and series and plays, actors We use the phrase we go to war together because we're fighting everybody. First of all, there's the fear that it won't be successful, and most things in show business are not successful. So there's this apprehension of, oh God, they're not going to like me, this isn't funny, this isn't dramatic, what I'm doing is not good, and then when it turns out it wasn't good, you berate yourself, I wasn't good, and they don't like me. And it's a series of shocks and things that go wrong, and people demean you, and it's humiliating to a large degree, being an actor and auditioning for roles. Because, as I say, most things are not successful. So, actors are bonded by this feeling we go to war to try and make something good. And when a producer or a director or a writer comes along and says or does or writes something that isn't quite what we think is good, oh my God, we got to change this, and you bond. And Leonard and I fought the wars together. All we wanted was for Star Trek to be good. And when we thought it wasn't good, when somebody else thought, well, that was good and we didn't think it was good, everybody was motivated by the same impulse, but had different tastes. So that our taste was different. No, it's not good. So when it came to rewriting and casting, we would have, we'd have something to say, and we worked together on it. But things in show business are ephemeral. They last for a short period of time. You may open and close a play, you may rehearse a play for 4 weeks and bond and think, we open that night, and it's not very good, and it closes that night. And people, the author might have worked a year on the play, the director's prepared for 6 months, they design the sets, they get the thing, they cast, they collect the money to pay everybody, and months, and then you rehearse for 4 weeks intensely, and then you open up and nobody applauds. Or worse, they don't laugh. Or worse, boo. Well, that's terrible. So the actors, see, a little applause is worse than no applause at all. So actors bond. Don't say goodbye yet, I'm not done. You had your hand waving goodbye. I'm not done yet, Mark. I'm still answering. Okay? Just stand there and call. So, after a period of time, whether it's overnight or 5 years in a series, the vehicle is done, and everybody says, I'll call you tomorrow, because you're my best friend forever. And then something happens, you don't call tomorrow, then something else happens. James Spader and I love each other. I did Boston Legal with him. When we said goodbye, call you, we're going to go, we're going to do. He got busy, I got busy. I've spoken to him twice on the phone. I've never seen him again. And I love him. He's a great guy. A great guy. A great friend on whom I depended so much for 5 years. I never saw him again. It's been 5 years. But Leonard and I were put into each other's company. We would appear on the stage like this to make each other laugh. So we'd be backstage talking about things and then get on stage and make each other laugh and hopefully make the audience laugh. And we had the best time to make each other laugh. Then we had to get to Tulsa, so we'd be on the plane together. Then we'd be in the car together. We'd be backstage together, go on stage together, go home together. As a result of being a private pilot, he became a pilot, so he had a plane. So occasionally he would fly me places and things like that. We appeared on stage a lot. We did 7 movies together. We were in each other's company far more than James Spader and I were together. So that helped the friendship. We had so much in common. We were just about the same age, 4 days apart. We were born in different cities, but under essentially the same circumstances. we worked hard to create a career in the same way. We had so much in common that it was really unusual. So we had a great friendship. We talked about death and divorce and money and lies and career and wives and children. We had so much in common. He was the brother I never had. And we used to joke about that. He has a brother, an older brother. I never had a brother. It sounds like a Red Buttons thing. They never gave me a brother. And so he was my brother. And then he died. And I wrote this book because, not for the first time, but I rediscovered that when someone you care about dies, and you've shared a lot of experiences, those experiences begin to fade like anything else. Whereas you when you met, would say, remember when, and you'd laugh about remember when, you've got nobody else, you've got nobody to say remember when. And remember when becomes more and more hazy. And did it happen or didn't it happen? And that's why I wrote the book. Trying to remember some of the wonderful experiences he and I had. The laughs we had, the tears we had. And that's what the book Leonard is about.
My name's Aaron.
Aaron?
I was wondering, which of the 6 original series Star Trek movies did you find your favorite?
Well, I thought the most brilliant of those early Star Trek movies was Star Trek V. Why is the audience laughing? I directed Star Trek V. You know, probably Leonard's movie about the whales was the best of the early film. Now, the problem with those early films, all of them, those in which the cast I was with, those movies, and the cast of The Next Generation did further movies. The problem always was they made about $100 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but when a movie costs $30 million, and the rule of thumb is a studio has to make 3 times what it cost to show a profit, that meant the studio got to $90 million before it showed a profit. So at the ceiling that every one of these movies hit, of $100 million, they were making a small amount of money and they wanted to make more, and they never did. So until J.J. Abrams came along to make these 3 films that he has, the movies never did very well. J.J. discovered, I guess before Star Trek, the computer graphic ride, that instead of depending so completely on story and character, that if you give the audience a ride with exploding starships and stars going, and the ride, then more people will come, and indeed they did. Big box office in the 3 films of Star Trek that we never had, due to his sagacity of being able to be wise enough to understand what the audience wanted. Star Trek for me, the Star Trek I was in, my Star Trek, was filled with story and awe and wonder. Awe and wonder at not only the world, but the universe, at life itself, at mankind, at the various aspects of man, and the various reasonings and the strange reasonings of man that made a science fiction story. Because all a real science fiction story is something that is human, placed someday in the future surrounded by an environment that is totally in the imagination of not only the writer, but the designer as well. In Zero G, this book that's out there now about the FBI in space. So I'm working with a wonderful author by the name of Jeff Robin, and we were talking about what does the spaceship that the FBI is in, orbiting the Earth. What's it look like? And I said, I had read somewhere about the solar wind. That's the energy coming off the sun that offers a little bit of a energy, a tiny amount of energy that is flowing from the sun outwards. But the theory is if you had a big enough sail, you could sail your vehicle, gradually accelerate to the speed of light based on the cosmic, I believe it's the cosmic rays that are emanating, that are giving this slight amount of pressure. So if you had a sail, which I envisioned to be triangular like the Egyptian boats, like the, what do you call them? The Middle Eastern boats with triangles.
Say that.
Not junks, but anyway, there's a name for it. Like
The name?
scow, or is it scow? Anyway, there's a name for that triangular sail. So that's what we made. We made a triangular sail made of mylar that captures the solar wind that powers this spaceship. It's theoretically possible. It's what may power spaceships in the future. But I sort of thought of what it would look like, and we invented this. And then designers, if it were to be a movie, and I'm getting some interest in movie companies, about, FBI in space, 50 years from now, a lot of vehicles are going around the Earth, people in the vehicles, there'll be a need for law enforcement, the FBI will be out there. So the FBI in space, 50 years from now, that's what the premise of that book is. That's science fiction. What was your question?
Which one was your favorite?
So, well, that's a movie that's coming up, I hope. So, Star Trek V for me was a peak moment in my life. I had to spend $30 million on something entertaining. And my original premise for that movie was Star Trek goes in search of God. If there is a God, why couldn't Star Trek sail in the direction of God, find God, and on the way have an adventure, and on the way meet the devil, which by extension means if there's a devil, then there's a God, and we deal with the devil. So that was the premise of my story. And it was shot down because they said, well, you know, there's so many gods, and we don't want to alienate anybody, and you get into controversy, and we don't want controversy. And so then somebody suggested making an alien who thought he was God, and I thought, well, to get my story filmed, I guess I could go with that, not realizing that I had compromised the whole story. And that went along with directing this large motion picture and learning the difference between compromising your thoughts and being political enough to work your way around so something could be done. And where you stand on principle and where you give up to be political is in each of our minds. It's an individual thing, and some people have died for principle, and other people have been more practical and have worked their way around. So give 51% or take 51% of what your ideals are and work with that. I had to learn to do that and didn't do it very well on Star Trek V. So Star Trek IV, Leonard Nimoy's film, is probably the best of the films I did. That would be my favorite. Although I pointed Star Trek V as a big lesson. Okay. Time for one more question. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Right into the microphone so I can understand.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I was just wondering, with all the new movies coming out, what do you think of Chris Pine's performance as Captain Kirk?
Oh man. He's young. He's handsome. He's athletic. He's thin. He's rich, and he's talented. Forget about it. He's great. He's just wonderful. He's a very talented actor. As Captain Kirk, he's great, and he's been in some other things that I thought were just marvelous. He's just terrific. I think that whole thing that J.J. Abrams has done with the whole franchise has enriched it, enlivened it, Star Trek. It may not be as pure as we were to the precepts that Roddenberry had. I mean, when Spock and Uhura are kissing, I know that Roddenberry is turning in his grave. But that aside, both the whole group of people making the new Star Trek movies have done wonders in bringing people to Star Trek, and that's something that I certainly applaud. Thank you very much, everybody.